Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three incredible guests today to answer this question in the new year. When the new of the year wears off, how do you encourage yourself and others to build and maintain momentum? But first, a quick intro, starting with Billy Armstrong. Billy is an entrepreneur and second-generation business owner who spent over a decade reimagining how a small family business can serve people in new ways. Using his skill set in business operations, customer experience design, and the creative use of technology to make business more human and more impactful. Billy, great to have you on. Martha Tween, inspiring mentor, facilitator, and CEO of Sapere Vedere Consulting, where she inspires individuals to discover their greatest potential through their innate strengths. As an executive coach, mentor, and consultant in organizational and talent development with over 15 years of international multicultural experience, Martha has an incredible story, and I encourage you to check it out. Adam Lopez, dynamic, results-driven professional with a passion for corporate training, human resources, and many other things. Currently serving as a learning specialist and onboarding liaison with Frost Bank here in San Antonio, where he shares Frost's history, culture, and leadership language. Welcome, all three of you. I cannot wait to hear the responses to this question. Billy, you drew the short end of the stick. You get to go first today. And that question is, when the new of the year wears off, how do you encourage yourself and others to build and maintain momentum?
Well, I love the question. Thanks for having me, and love the show and everything you're doing. I would say what probably the thing that I rely on most is identity. So just kind of refocusing in who we are rather than what we're doing as far as trying to build, keep that momentum going. So in the new year, everybody is excited. You may set goals, you may have everything, but oftentimes that burnout that can kind of come up in a team or in life individually is stuff that we're just avoiding. And so encouraging people to just kind of come up with what is your identity. One thing I like to say for myself, say for my family is like, I am blessed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a great, happy new year. That is a blessing you bestow on others. And so keeping that kind of identity moving and in routine is probably the most important thing. But then as there may be some moving on into February and March and maybe lose focus to maybe what your goals are, really it's going back to reframing what that burnout is or what maybe is not working. So, and so also, encouraging others is also encouraging yourself. So if you're a leader, if you're able to build into your team that act of service and act of kindness, and you're both able to communicate to them your values, but also when you're communicating those things, you're reinstilling those things in your own ethos, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's curious identity, right? But if we have that anchor, we can connect back to that. We know when we're out of alignment. And I think so much of what you said makes a lot of sense when you start to stray or you start to feel whatever it may be that feels like burning out or not being inspired to continue or it's dragging or heavy or whatever. Checking back in with who you are, what's it all about, and using that as inspiration. I love it. Martha, let's jump over to you. What would you say when the new of the year wears off? How do you encourage yourself and others to build and maintain momentum?
Well, this question makes so much sense because I think that every leader, everybody struggles with that. We start January, we're ready to jump, we have great plans, but more than anything, they're just intentions. And we call those intentions, like you guys said, the New Year's famous New Year's resolutions. But here is the problem. They are just plans. They're just intentions. So what I've learned is that we need first to have a vision, like what do you really want to be at the end of the year, or what do you want to achieve? But not only in the personal side of things, but in not only the professional, but also in the personal side of things, because a lot of us forget that, and it turns into burnout, like Billy said. Like if I don't take care of my health, I'm not going to be able to make it to the end of the year, right? So that first is the vision, clear vision of where you want to be. And then the next thing is goals, but goals that are really well defined, But if we don't have the third element, which is what are the behaviors that are going to take you to those goals? Because we may say, my goal is to lose 40 pounds by the end of the year. Okay, wonderful. Okay, do you think that's it? No. How are you going to do it? But even if we say how, we don't have the specific behaviors that will tie these goals to really sustainable change. And this is the critical part. Like if you don't identify which behaviors will take you to accomplish this goal, you're going to be lost along the way. And these goals need to be, these behaviors need to be sustained, and they need to start gradually. For instance, I said, okay, with this goal, like I'm going to lose 40 pounds. Okay, great. You're going to lose 40 pounds. How? Okay, I'm going to substitute vegetables instead of bread. Wonderful. How many servings? Well, you have to really go to the nitty gritty. What I did this 2025 is I wanted to get stronger and work a little bit on my physical stamina and that. So I started with yoga, 5 minutes a day. That's all I did. I started with 5 minutes. I'm up to 30 minutes, and I can see the difference. But the key to that is the consistency. I have to be consistent. But I'm just going to tie it back to Billy, because Billy said what I really think that is what is going to anchor these behaviors and help us be consistent is if you incorporate all of that into your identity and you say, okay, I'm really a healthy person, that is going to help us. That's going to be our compass to track us back to put us back on track. So, and that is not discipline, it's not willpower, it's identity, and that will be who you become, who you will be for the end of the day.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned the consistency over intensity. I think is so important, because that's what we see in the beginning of the year. People set goals and they take off out of the gate full speed. And then by February, you're gasping for breath. And so the 5-minute yoga example was a brilliant one, Martha. Adam, how about you? Let's hear what you would add to this when the new of the year wears off. How do you encourage yourself and others to build and maintain momentum?
I love what Billy said as far as, and Martha, you as well, and reconnecting to your purpose. When the initial enthusiasm, the newness of the new year fades, what I do is I remind myself why I started doing this in the first place. So remembering my why, in other words. And by doing this helps me to stay focused by linking my goals to my personal values and organizational impact. And this helps me to see the bigger picture, stay focused on that. So for example, like let's say, instead of focusing on, okay, I'm going to complete a training course, I think about how it supports my career growth or my team's success. And that helps to drive me to keep that momentum going with what I'm doing. And then Martha, I love what you mentioned as far as breaking down those goals, goal setting. And I'm a big fan of breaking down goals and creating smaller wins within those goals. Momentum really thrives in progress. And so I really encourage breaking down large objectives into smaller achievable milestones, and then celebrating those wins when you hit those milestones, whether through like recognition programs or even just a simple shout out, like in a team meeting or in a group chat. This can help to keep energy high, and it helps to reinforce positive, proactive behavior that keeps moving that needle forward.
Mhm.
And then another thing, accountability, some type of accountability structure. There's something about accountability that really encourages action. So peer learning groups, mentoring, regular check-ins, it can be very beneficial for people. I personally, I'm a big fan of one-on-ones because it helps me stay connected to my manager, and I get the direction and support that I need to help me to continue moving forward. And when people feel supported and accountable, they're more likely to stay committed and locked in when that motivation dips.
Yeah, I love that so much. I was working with a group of leaders last week actually, and they're coming off the tail end of a whirlwind of change, new CEOs coming in, all kinds of things. But they felt like this tremendous sense of momentum, you know, kind of in the last 2 months. A lot of things have happened, a lot of changes have been made. And I was talking to them about the fact that, you know, momentum isn't this sense of feeling fired up right now. It's about refusing to drift as you move forward. And I think there's so much of what you guys are all describing, being able to anchor back to purpose, to identity, and so forth, that really says, I've got something to focus on. And when I have that, momentum is going to pick up through, Martha, the consistency and the application of those things, even when it feels slow and mundane and I'm doing the same type of routine and behavior. It's building, it's building, it's building. How do you personally spot maybe the early signs that your momentum is slipping before it starts to impact results? So that's maybe a little bit more personal, but how do you personally spot the early signs that momentum is slipping before it impacts the results you're trying to have?
All right. I think that we have the blessing at this age of technology, and a lot of it, a lot of these programs that you can buy in an app, for instance, the yoga app that I have, that's a reminder. It creates accountability, and it's tracking, and it's trying for you to be consistent. Also, it helps you be consistent. So you can share that. Another tracking thing I use is the circles in my iWatch, because I want to close those circles, you know. And the day I don't close my circles, I feel like, oh my God, I didn't walk enough steps, or I didn't move enough today. You know, let's get moving. So I will get go out and do my 30-minute power walk, you know. So that way I for sure I'm going to close my circles. So that is when it helps me. So I think that right now we are blessed with the technology.
I love that. Yeah, because it's a new age, right? And so those are very simple things that we can put in place that will remind us. And then we've got to going back to what you talked about earlier, we've got to decide, will we execute on the behavior that we know the watch can't take, right? It can show us a circle, but it can't do the yoga. So I love that. Billy or Adam, what do you think?
Accountability. I mean, really and truly, I'm really big on accountability, but and a lot of it is like, and yeah, Martha, I love what you said as far as like technology, like leveraging that technology to hold you accountable. But like for me, like relationships, you know, and having like a physical person there with me, like I have a colleague of mine who, like, you know, I'll share with them, you know, goals, aspirations, things that I want to achieve. And then as the year goes on, he's like, hey, so how are you doing with that goal that you're working on? You said you're going to work on, and it helps me, keeps me in check, where it's like, oh, I'm working on this and that and this and that. And so, but yeah, and there's some days we're human, you know, the busyness of life takes over, and then those goals start to kind of, you know, push off to the sides. And but just having that accountability partner or buddy, if you will, that works for me, you know, because like they know what I want to achieve, and you know, and someone that you know you can trust, that will hold you accountable, you know, and that's going to call you out when you need it, you know, and in love, of course, you know, and people that you know that have your best interests at heart, that care about you and your success, and you get that back as well. You know, it's a two-way street also with that accountability.
Yeah, and accountability, the term is thrown around so often, and I think we all know that accountability has to start with us individually, right? We've got to be able to take the action after we look at the watch. We've got to be really progressing towards the goal, even when someone asks us how we're progressing. but it is great to have those things and those people in place, and to set an expectation in maybe in any environment, but in a work environment, especially, I think when you incorporate that level of trust, that there's an expectation that we're going to question those things. And it's not badgering, and it's not prodding, and it's not, oh, you're not doing your thing. It's, I'm asking because I sincerely believe you can do that, and I want to check in with you. Right. And so I think so much of that accountability has to begin with self. And then we set up those additional support systems that can really, really be valuable to motivate and incent us. Billy, what would you add to the mix, man?
I mean, what everyone shared so far is great. The kind of tying it into some of what y'all shared, the leading with ownership. So in your communication, oftentimes I know I'm losing momentum, or I can recognize where I'm struggling if I am not taking ownership of something that I am a part of. And so in communication, Martha, what you shared earlier about consistency, and then having goals, breaking them up are great. But when you are, like Adam shared, checking in with someone, if you can communicate in those conversations back to mindset, vision, things that you have common ground in, then they're not going to feel, in a team environment, they're not going to feel like you're expecting perfection, right? You're communicating the same thing day in and day out. Also, if you're not leading that by example, it's not going to come out authentically, right? So I'd say do that often. So something I've talked to you about, Kyle, and I heard Benjamin Franklin did it. He starts the day in the morning saying what he wants the day to look like and how he wants to end. But if you expect perfection out of your life and you have a list of things that you need to do, that's not going to work. But if you have a mindset and you're able to check in the morning and in the afternoon, that's great. And I think in a team, if everyone has kind of that same ethos, that same practice, and then, like you said earlier, an anchor, those tasks, those things that need to get done aren't necessarily, they're not going to result in burnout. They're always going back to whatever that anchor is. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that kind of doubles down on what Martha even started talking about with the intentionality behind it, right? Intentions are great. We can think them, we can write them, we can share them, but until we take that inspired and deliberate action, then it doesn't amount to anything. Wow. Awesome, you guys. I'm going to wrap this whole piece up by saying, if you want sustained momentum, stop chasing motivation and start reinforcing identity, clarity, consistency, and accountability. I think that's inspired action in the long game. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Thanks everybody out there in the world of YouTube for watching. Be sure to join us every Thursday at noon Central on LinkedIn for new episodes. And here's to all of you crushing your goals in 2026. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.